we have been waiting patiently for Satish Deshpande. Can you hear me now? Psycho, can you hear me at the back? Yeah. So, Satish to come, and he's on his way. But we thought we were already late by.
I think the volume needs to be
raised a bit. Yeah. So he's on his way. But we thought we'd start. I'll just say a few words, and by that time, hopefully, we'll turn up. And the original plan was that Satish will start out the session, and then Tista Bagchi from linguistics will take over, and then Soumyabrata from arts and aesthetics will finally end the session. And then we'll open it up as we do customarily and field questions and comments and things like that. Now the whole idea, as most of you I think is aware, that this is an excuse for the publication of the book Sharpnel Minima, Writings from Humanities Underground. Some of you may not be familiar with that space, Humanities Underground, which is an internet space, it's a web magazine. It's been running for a few years now, 3.5 years. But the whole space is partly informal space, but with a certain kind of rigor. So I really wanted this whole session to be not a formal session, although the setup is very formal. This is a really classroom setup. But we'll try to break that hopefully, and come up with, at the end when we're asking questions, I don't really think that we should ask questions formally, that we should come in and if that's possible, and just engage. Now, customarily good afternoon to all of you first, and welcome for this this forum, which is on the question of method, as you can see. But before that, I should really thank the history department for allowing us this space, and particularly, Rahul Govind and Sangamitra Mishra there, who very enthusiastically sort of facilitated this whole thing for us here. This is also, as many of you know, this is the first in the two-part series on the same question of method in humanities. Although the peg is slightly different, we'll meet again 4 o'clock next Monday in JNU, Institute of Advanced Study in JNU. Now, that is the context. Now, around 5 years ago, 4.5 possibly, when this whole thing started as a blog, Humanities Underground, now it is a website. I don't know whether that makes any difference, whether it's a blog or a website. But it was born, it was an impulsive thing. One morning, and we thought that I could do something with the space, because the space in the internet is freely available. I don't have to pay, and let us start something. Now, let us starting something was, of course, the background was, we felt in the English department, this is 2010, 11 at that point, we felt that this university in various ways at that point of time were trying to do something with the humanities in various ways. That is to say, it was not trying to do away with the humanities. In fact, humanities was becoming quite interesting from the university's point of view. But a kind of for democratic kind of space where, with a populist kind of veneer, to keep it afloat, let it be there, in a watered-down sense, in various ways. By removing systematically, sometimes arbitrarily. It's not that it was always systematic. We didn't understand the logic behind it. I still don't. There's in some way the passion and the rigor that comes with the humanities where something was going on there. Now one could also see, as now becoming much more clear to us, that it's not just you, it's happening all around the world. It is in major parts of the world. So possibly it's a structural kind of shift where you is part of this whole thing in some way. So, and people were reacting right at that point of time. Many people were reacting in their own way. Some of them took to the streets, some of them joined seminars or wrote articles in paper or in EPW or in other places. And some of our colleagues and friends, because we don't know much beyond scholarship, which is our bread and butter, our natural inclination is to look inward, I think. This is not to say we don't do other kinds of stuff, but there's one group of people who are self-reflective in a way. So much water has flown since that time, but we are, as all of you are aware, still at crossroads in various ways. But the website still sort of adds and augments on the original thing that I started on. Initially, I wrote to some friends to give some articles, or I really wrote to some academic friends. Something, if you have not published, please give it to me. Or somewhere lying there, I don't want to footnote heavy kind of thing. I wanted this whole thing for a serious lay reader outside who is always engaged with the question of humanity, but doesn't necessarily want to get into nitty-gritties of scholarship per se, the protocols of scholarship, so to speak. Now, at one remove to, I really don't want to get into policy issues here, that's very important. But there are sage heads in this room and outside who have been writing, who will be writing about all these things. I'll not venture there, but I'll talk about a little bit about something at one remove about the discipline of humanities itself. Why did we choose this question of method today, and what's the background behind this? Now, I recall in February 2011, there was a session in the English department right here, and the title of that session was a half-a-day workshop kind of thing. It was called Everyday Life of the Discipline, meaning humanities, or English meaning. I don't remember what discipline meant, whether it was humanities or English, but more or less on those lines. And there were 4 speakers. I was the last one, but stalwarts like Rajeshwari Sundararajan and Alok Rai, who was still in our department then, he retired after that. They were the speakers, and we were wondering, Rajeshwari and Alok, among many others, were the people who actually started, as all of you know, many of you know, what is now known as the post-colonial scene in India. So in late 70s, early 80s, they were at the forefront of things, trying to define, as all of you now know, what should be canon, what is outside of canon, questions of translation, regional languages, those issues. It was a question of survival of English in many parts of India, I think, in the academy. They started it. So I was very curious to know what, after 20-25 odd years of that movement, what do Rajeshwari and Alok has to say about humanities? Where is this going? Are they going to speculate? Are they going to give us a history? Are they going to talk about humanities, what it means theoretically? I was wondering. And then, I heard that in different ways, there was one common thread that both of them had. And that was a sort of a mea culpa mode about what they had done 25 years, 30 years ago. And it came out in the way that humanities should be more about appraisal of things. It should not be about critiquing. This critical study has destroyed humanities. It is something social scientists do. Humanities people didn't do that. Now, they were not saying in so many words. They talked about salvation of humanities. These are the words I remember. We have to be agonistic, not antagonistic. We have to assemble the jet stamps and the float stamps of literature. We should not be arrogant. That was the thrust that's coming from. Look at one point actually say, scholarship in the last 20-25 years in humanities have become a matter of conviction as opposed to a matter of appraisal. A conviction he was using in a very, he was critiquing light of conviction, I felt. He was not using the term ideology, he was using the term commitment and conviction. The commitment and conviction has somehow made us lose something essential in humanities studies. That was the thrust. And went on to sort of, as I said, we have more to say, this culture studies thing has actually created all sorts of trouble. Also, needlessly it has become too political. The humanities studies. It has become ethically bankrupt. It's overtly politicized. And, I would say, we are joyless creatures now. We are thoroughly joyless. Okay, this was the term that he used. I remember that phrase very vividly. Very interesting. After that, Alok was here for a year or two, and he used to give other courses, MPhil courses, but he designed a new course called After Theory. Now, this title is very interesting. That he's assuming that the heydays of theory are gone. It's a good thing. And we have to think about after theory and how to think about after theory. And we can look at the course again and we get a sense of what he's trying to say. But of course, we know that, our theory, which is second order conceptualizing or philosophizing about literature and arts, cannot come to a certain point. It's impossible. It has not. What has happened, I think it has morphed. There has been, in the vein of what I saw that day, after that, later on I came to realize it was there in the ambience for a while, at least in the West, about a return of a very normative and activist kind of investment in certain things which we thought have been questioned in much of 20th century, especially in the second half of 20th century. For example, an idea of the aesthetic as something which is outside of society, something in itself stands. Or philology, which was one of the main ways to look at humanities from 19th century onwards. There's a very vigorous return of philological studies now in the past 10 or 12 years, I think. Or say the idea of formalism. We have to go back to a new, we were just talking about this new formalism is returning, or a new thing cannot return, but in a different way it is being worked out, etc., etc. These things we are hearing. If you are aware of this, thing called world literature, which is all around us, they have one of the main theorists of world literature, Moderator, talks about distant reading, or there is a whole school of thought now called surface reading, or similar kind of terms which are trying to hit hard at history, at culture studies, at politics, if you want to define politics as something connected with society, if you like. So, in place of that, we have also a return of a very powerful sense of, I want to ask you whether it seems same from your disciplinary point of view, too, a very powerful investment in spiritualism, in religion. Various kinds of. My area, early modern studies, I see that very strongly. I've also talked to other colleagues in other areas, they also feel that it's coming back in a strong way. Now, these changes, shifts that I'm talking about, morphings, I have reasons to believe, I will explain it right now, that it has some connections in this place. Yeah. Well, it has some connection with with reforming humanities, privatizing humanities studies, policy shifts, and so on. Is it possible to reform humanities? I'm not sure. There seems to be an oxymoronic term in itself. But there's an attempt to that. To the extent, the extreme form of that is to suggest from this kind of new formalisms, and we were discussing it, to say that concepts themselves are problematic. There should not be any conceptual discussion of humanities. Analysis itself is a problem. Humanities cannot be analyzed, and therefore we should not analyze. In some sense, this is a very freshman kind of anxiety that we have. We often hear that you guys have killed humanities because you analyze humanities. This is a very freshman concern. All of us had that at some point. But this freshman concern is coming back in a very sophisticated fashion now. There is also, I think, again, I don't want to go into details, there's a sense of distrust with, I say, a long 20th century, so beginning from 19th century, about uncertainty that modernity sort of gives us, or the moorings of modernity itself. So people are going back to some sort of mooring, some sort of certainty to latch on to in various ways. And these are the ways, text, religion, formal things to go back. Now, of course, academically we are taking stock of these things. What does it mean? Partly I'm speculating, but partly it's there for 10, 12 years. In history, for example, I'm not a student of history, so I won't venture there. But as an outsider, we know that there are historiographical methods which have changed over a period of time, and this ascendancy of the progressives, and then the subordinates, and the debates, and so on and so forth, and microhistory, all that. In humanities, as all of us know, at least from South Asian point of view, from Indian point of view, a particular variety of culture studies, known as post-colonial studies, let us say, had a tremendous influence